For Nietzsche, philosophy is essentially about morality. From the first to the last, his works dwell on morality in some form or other. In his early essay on David Strauss, he is looking at Strauss as an example of those rationalists who sought to remove the superstition from religion, Christianity, and so make a rational faith the scientific age, not realizing, of course, that he still adhered to Christian morality. And Nietzsche knew too that Christian morality by then had thoroughly imbued society in all stratas and all levels. Christian morality was everywhere. And it was assumed, as it is assumed now, that there is only one morality, a human morality, because all humans are equal. And so the morality of do unto others as you would have them do unto you is the prevalent form of morality, and it is assumed by many that that morality is held worldwide. But of course, that morality is based on an assumption that we are all equal. It is therefore actually a Christian morality. It is a particular morality. And so Nietzsche had to show, in order to overcome this notion of Christianity and Christian morality, that there are different moralities. He had to show that just as there are different tribes, different types of people, different physiologies, different psychologies, different races, different cultures, he had to show that in all those cases there were different moralities that applied to them. Often the moralities were an expression of that particularity of person, and those moralities were used to perpetuate that particular type of culture or person. And so with Christianity, that too had its own particular morality that sought, of course, to perpetuate the Christian type. The Christian type who was to Nietzsche the very opposite of the noble type. Christian morality had overtaken noble morality, which was very different. Noble morality in itself seeks to perpetuate nobility through its own strictures, which are, of course, very different to Christianity, because noble morality does not believe in equality. It rejects equality. So, in order to do away with Christian morality, Nietzsche had to make this case. And he did make it. And I think that while he was not read and listened to at the time, it has become accepted now that there are different types of morality. And as the world has become smaller, and as we see different cultures, different peoples in a much closer up way now, we can see clearly that Nietzsche was right. There are different moralities. It was a pure Christian assumption that there is one morality, and that just so happens to be a Christian morality. But how do we inculcate this into our lives? How do we do something about this? If we look at people in history who also notice this, we can see different strategies that can be adopted. You can remain within, for example, the particular religion and culture, so for example Christianity, but revalue the values, the morality within that culture, within that religion, which of course is known as heresy. You become a heretic. An example of that would be William Blake, who essentially remains a Christian and indeed is a very creative Christian. And he switches, like Nietzsche, he switches, reverses, revalues the morality. Evil becomes good. But of course, Blake then is a very lonely heretic, called a madman in his own day. So perhaps that's not a path that can be taken by many. More generally, we can see a path that was taken around the same time as Nietzsche, the path of Satanism, and it still flourishes today. This is a path which avoids the isolated aspect of a Blake and makes a society or a group within a society of Satanists. It takes all of the dictums and strictures of Christianity and reverses them. Again, good becomes evil. Black becomes white because this is known often as black magic. Of course, Aleister Crowley was one of the great figures in this movement of Satanism. I suppose the problem with that one is that not every aspect of Christianity is purely Christian. There are aspects of Christianity which are leftovers of paganism, and those aspects should not be reversed. And so Satanism often ends up as a kind of satire on Christianity rather than a true spirituality, which is what it aims to be. So again, we are not satisfied with that. And then we can look at paganism. We can say that paganism precedes Christianity. Paganism has noble values. It has the noble morality that Nietzsche is after. And therefore, if we study paganism and adhere to it, we then will be delivered from Christian morality and return to a noble morality. And while that, in my view, is a good system, it has its own flaws, simply because, one, what we know as paganism comes down to us largely filtered through Christian eyes and Christian ears and Christian pens. Much of the pagan literature we have is written down by Christian scribes. So we have to factor that in. In Nietzsche's view, the old Icelandic sagas give us the most unspoiled view of that morality. So we have lots to go on there. I've found personally that unfortunately many pagans today, practicing pagans, are still imbued with Christian morality. And unfortunately, they will try to drive out real pagans who have the noble morality. They will call them Nazis and fascists and so forth. And so while that's not a problem with the paganism as such, it does show that there must be a large element of Christianity, Christian morality, which is still in paganism. Otherwise, it would not draw those crypto-Christians. The other examples we can look at in terms of how to live this revaluation of values in terms of morality We can become total godless atheists, but we notice again that many of those who are atheists, whether they be socialists, communists, or anarchists, tend to adhere to a kind of watered down Christian morality. It seems that the nihilistic aspects of atheism lead us back to that Christian morality because that Christian morality is born out of nihilism. So the Nietzschean must have a positive morality of his own, or we might want to call it an ethos. He must have a noble ethos to replace Christian morality. And therefore it must be the aristocratic radicalism of the noble. It must be that which is found in the sagas, in ancient Rome, in the Renaissance, in Napoleon. It must be derived from that kind of area. The belief in inequality, the belief in order of rank, in pathos of distance, in the commander and in the will to power, as I've said many times. And this is what Nietzsche gives us. So somehow, and it's difficult, we must take from Nietzsche, and perhaps Zarathustra is the best place to start, we must take from Nietzsche a kind of movement where we can be Nietzscheans, we can be solid, hierarchical, and amongst our own, and able to project the power of Nietzscheanism and of noble values. Whether we do that politically in a form of fascism or culturally in a form of paganism, it still must be done. It is not enough to become a pessimist, a nihilist, or a pretend pagan, or an inverted Christian. We must strike out with our own noble morality, the Nietzschean morality, the one I call tough Nietzscheanism.